Okay, so even the context, the environment matters, family, right? So moving right along, so though that's what ACEs are. Now, why are they so problematic? Is because this distress, that emotional pain, it can persist for years. And I tell you, you've gotten a lot of background. If you've been listening to the conference all day, you have a lot of background on how this operates, right? But thank God for the redemptive work of Christ, right? But that pain, see, the enemy wants that pain to last long term. He wants us to be prisoner to those experiences and letting that shape our future. But not only that, it's the nature of the adversity. It's the frequency and seriousness of the traumatic event. Also, if there is prior trauma in the family or prior trauma for the child, and also too, how many supports and wraparounds do we have around that child to help promote resiliency in the face of adversity? Okay, so that's why this is so problematic. But now let's just talk. So as we know before, and we've been talking about this all day, that essentially the enemy is coming against our minds. And that is the battleground. That's where he's trying to gain traction in even the people of God, right? And so moving right along, interestingly so, we see that most people have experienced at least one ACE. At least 62% of adults, when they surveyed across the United States, experienced at least one ACE during childhood. So these ACEs are quite prevalent. And a quarter of people said that they had experienced 3 or more ACEs. Okay, and what does that mean when it comes to health and well-being of children? So it's so problematic because it depresses the immune functioning of the child, and we see negative effects on health, well-being, as well as opportunity. It can disrupt healthy brain development. It can affect social development. It can even improve. It can compromise the immune functioning. So this is what happens. I don't know if I can show this video, if I can share my screen for just a second. I'm not sure. But let's see here. Can I share my screen? I want to maybe share with you guys a video here. And I'm going to share my screen just for a moment. Okay, so you see my screen here. And I just want to share this to show you how this toxic stress and how this adversity derails development. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share this video here. This is from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child.
Learning to deal with stress is an important part of healthy development. When experiencing stress, the stress response system is activated. The body and brain go on alert. There's an adrenaline rush, increased heart rate, and an increase in stress hormone levels. When the stress is relieved after a short time, or a young child receives support from caring adults, the stress response winds down and the body quickly returns to normal. In severe situations, such as ongoing abuse and neglect, where there is no caring adult to act as a buffer against the stress response stays activated. Even when there is no apparent physical harm, the extended absence of response from adults can activate the stress response system. Constant activation of the stress response overloads developing systems, with serious, lifelong consequences for the child. This is known as toxic stress. Over time, this results in a stress response system set permanently on high alert. In the areas of the brain dedicated to learning and reasoning, the neural connections that comprise brain architecture are weaker and fewer in number. Science shows that the prolonged activation of stress hormones in early childhood can actually reduce neural connections in these important areas of the brain at just the time when they should be growing new ones. Toxic stress can be avoided if we ensure that the environments in which children grow and develop are nurturing, stable, and engaging.
So here we go. That's how we see that there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come on back in. So there we go. So now you have an understanding of how it derails development. And interestingly so, that adversity, it affects the learning centers of the brain. And not only does it impact the centers of the brain that are in control of learning, but it also impacts the centers of the brain that control our reward system. And what that means is that it actually causes or could potentially cause them to engage in more risk-taking behaviors to kind of cope with the pain, because they're in the parts of the brain that control impulse control have been negatively altered due to that trauma. And so that's just exactly what the enemy wants. And here's the thing is, some of their experiences, even adults can wrap their minds around. But these are little kiddos who are trying to cope with this trauma, all right? And so we see that it can disrupt healthy brain development, affect social development, compromise immune systems, lead to substance misuse and other unhealthy coping behaviors, also increase risk of injury, STIs, HIV, mental health problems, maternal and child health problems, teen pregnancy, involvement in sex trafficking. Yes, it's very hard for those kiddos to deal with a wide range of chronic diseases. So this is what was really surprising to me when I first found this out, was the fact that it can impact and make them more susceptible to chronic diseases, leading to causes of death such as cancer, diabetes, heart disease, as well as suicide. And I was like, wow, childhood trauma can make you more susceptible to diabetes? Can make you more susceptible to cancer? My God, we have to address this. We definitely have to address this. So moving a little bit more deeply into that, this is just highlighting those areas that could be impacted, as I said before. Now, I want to talk about the mechanism by which this happens, okay? Now, so here in this next slide, you'll see a pyramid. Oh, well, maybe not. I think I may have added that later on. But there is an embodiment, a historical embodiment, right, that could potentially lead to, a child experiencing an ACE based on contextual factors, which could also lead to, the actual ACE being experienced. And that derails their neural development. And so they may be compromised in their social engagement, their cognitive engagement, their emotional abilities. And that can lead to a higher likelihood of engagement in risk-taking behaviors. And over time, that can impact their entire lifespan. And what we see is that when people have experienced, I believe, 3 or more ACEs, it could potentially cut off 20 years of their life. This is a matter of life and death. And when the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, these are his methods. These are his methods. And so we want to understand, what are his goals? Like, why is he attacking marriage? Like, what is his whole diabolical scheme behind this? And really is to remove the protection from the home. When I tell you there is an attack on men like never before, there's an attack on God's expression of manhood in the earth, there's an attack on masculinity here in the earth, is because they want to remove that protection in the home. And as I even highlighted before, we see that, yes, John 10 and 10, but Jesus said, I have come to give us life and life more abundantly. So thank God for the promises that he has for us, despite what the enemy is trying to do. But when we see marriage, we also see, with respect to its impact on fatherhood and engagement. A lot of my research actually focuses on fatherhood and looking at their past experiences, how it impacts their parenting, their relationship outcomes, and things of that nature. But of any other relationship status, being married, those fathers are more likely to have a co-residential status with their children. All right. But here's the thing. This is what the enemy wants to do. So no man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods except he first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. Family, what the enemy is trying to do, he is trying to bind the father in the home. Not only bind the father in the home, but just take him out of the picture altogether. Because the goods that he is trying to spoil, those goods are those kiddos involved. Come on now. He wants to throw them off course early on. Because see, God is concerned about the replication of his righteous seed in the earth. But if the enemy can come in and sow seeds that are not godly, or sow experiences that get that child's thinking off, see, he's concerned about the productivity of that seed. He doesn't want that seed to bear much fruit. And so he's trying to throw everything that he can to take and remove those protections from that child. And so what we see is that there's an attack on men in their rightful places and understanding their significance and the value that they add, or even understanding their role in the home. Come on now. And even with their heart toward their family, even with just basic integrity. Because now what it means to be a man is sowing your sowing your oats, you know? But it's not according to the word of God. We have to say, what is real manhood? Because really, it's like that's the foundation. Where is the priest in the home? That's the foundation. And so the enemy is trying to remove that, and that puts heightened stress on everybody involved. On everybody involved. So let's keep it moving to the next slide. And as we saw before, we see how that child's brain is shaped by that trauma. How the areas of the brain that should be growing, we're seeing atrophy. We're not seeing those connections being made. The areas of the brain that are in control of learning are negatively affected by trauma. The parts of the brain that control our reward and pleasure system, negatively affected by trauma. And so here's the thing, the enemy, he wants to just prevent marriages from occurring at a period. As we saw before, that declining rate in marriage, the lowest marriage rate that we've seen historically, we're seeing that now. There's a narrative out there that's just saying it doesn't matter anymore. Even in my field, I'll tell on my field. Even in my field, which is child and family development, I'm not going to name the organization, but one of our national organizations said that family structure doesn't matter. It's the experiences of the child in the home that matter. Yes. So that's the narrative out there now. Okay. So here's the thing, is that God is concerned about the replication of his righteous seed within the earth, because the first command was for us to be fruitful and to multiply, and he wants that next seed, that next generation, to be unproductive, to be unfruitful. Because see, here's the thing, think about it. When Israel was on his deathbed, when Jacob was on his deathbed, what did he do? He spoke into the lives of his sons, and he told them their identity. And so the enemy is trying to knock godly identity off its course. And so that children are confused based on this trauma, and they want to define themselves by their trauma and find their identity in that. But because we don't have those fathers in the home speaking into their children, saying, this is who you are. This is your identity. You were made in the image of Christ. This is who you are. And so there's trying to be a removal of that, and that protective covering over that seed. All right. So moving right along. And so here's the thing, in Genesis, very first chapter of the Bible, where we see, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female created he them. So here's the thing, God's image, our character, our identity is in him. And the enemy is trying to come in to remove the protection of the marriage, right? So, and because he wants to come against that productivity. That's what he's concerned about. So now that, oh my gosh, don't even let me go into all the seeds that aren't even coming to the earth. Come on now. So he's upset. He's upset. He's upset. And so because God gave that command to marital couples early on, right? Gave it to us early on. God blessed him and God said, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. See, God's righteousness has to last throughout the generations, right? So God's righteousness has to last throughout the generations, because the reality is that I'm not going to be here one day. But did I set something in course, set something in motion for the next generation to pick up the baton and hold up that banner, that bloodstained banner in the image of Christ, right? And so, and to have that dominion, because at the end of the day, God still has full control and authority. And he uses us to, as his kingdom ambassadors, to operate his truth and authority here in the earth. But if we don't even know we're kingdom ambassadors, we don't have anybody telling us our kingdom identity, then what's going on, family? That's the plan of the enemy, and it's a trick of the enemy. That's exactly what it is. But we are not ignorant of the enemy's devices, right? Right. Okay, so moving right along. So here's the thing. Interestingly so, nerve cells look like trees. This is an example of a nerve cell. It looks like a tree, right? Nerve cells look like trees. And so here's the thing. When we're thinking about the neuroplasticity of the brain and those connections being hardwired, is that the enemy wants to plant his trees too. Because it is in the mind. So when we're thinking about the neuroplasticity of the brain is shaped by experiences, choices, and actions. And he wants to embed adverse childhood experiences to shape that child's brain and make hardwired connections that are not the truth, that are deceptive, that are not true. And he wants those things to be hardwired into their subconscious brain, because really about 80% of our choices comes from our subconscious brain. All right? And he wants to get those things hardwired early on, because the brain is very malleable early on during childhood. And so here's the thing, is we were talking about also those adverse childhood experiences. Now, I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know if y'all know, if y'all privy, but a lot of these young people, their parents aren't bringing them up in church like we used to. It's not like it used to be. But they say they are super spiritual. Now, come on now. I got to tell y'all the truth. Now they are into all kinds of witchcraft and don't even know it. That's the truth, because they are trying to anesthetize their pain, and they haven't been raised in the church. They haven't been spoken into the protection of the Father. They've been left wide open. They've been left wide open. And I remember when I was in Atlanta, I used to do a lot of work with the University for Parents, and one of my grandparents came in and she said, my grandbaby was like, I don't need a man. I'm not getting married. I'm going to have my career, but I don't need a man. I'm not getting married. This little girl was all of 7 or 8 years old. So where did she find out, or where did she come to the conclusion that she didn't need a man to be successful, to live the life? I understand marriage is not for everybody. But this is an 8-year-old already coming to this conclusion. Come on, man. So a lot of children are anesthetizing this pain from these adverse child experiences, and they're looking, they're searching for spiritual outlets, but they're not going to the truth, and they are being deceived by Satan. And they're also picking up unhealthy coping strategies as well, because the enemy's trying to plant his trees too. He's trying to plant those trees. He's trying to plant those experiences and hardwire that into their thinking. A false belief system, a deception about who they are, a deception about their identity. That's what he's trying to do. All right, so moving right along. All right, so he's trying to spoil those goods, right? With shaping the brain by trauma, introducing unhealthy coping mechanisms. Interestingly, research from Myers back in 1996, and these are other researchers that support this, is that children have a higher likelihood of losing their religious faith and practice post-divorce. Following a divorce, children are more likely to abandon their faith. As adults, those raised in step families are less likely to be religious than those raised by both biological parents. And since religious practice has benefits in areas such as sexual restraint, the child of divorce may lose this protection. He is coming after the goods. He is coming after that next generation. And then he knows if he puts some things in course, he can just take his hands off of it and let those trees grow. Let those illegitimate trees in the mind grow. And that's what he's trying to do. Okay, so moving right along. All right, so what can we do as clinicians? What can we do as practitioners? As I was saying before, we understand that context matters. So as we are evaluating situations, I'm so grateful that you guys are getting value out of this. So as we are evaluating the people who come into our offices, whether they are children, whether they are adults, how can we assess what's going on in their relationships? As I said before, when I started off this presentation, I asked, think about the most distressful situation you've ever had that impacted your mental health or impacted you emotionally. Did it involve a family relationship or did it involve an intimate relationship? And a lot of times it does. So that context matters. Because if they're coming in for depression, but it's because of some family situation, we need to know that. We definitely need to know that. So we want to assess the well-being of the home environment for our clients. And then also too, here's the thing, like I always say, I say therapy assumes that functioning was optimal before whatever event caused the need for therapy. But here's the thing, like when someone goes to physical therapy for any help with their walking, the idea is that they were walking properly before there was some type of trauma, right? But for some people and some individuals, they don't know, because the functioning from childhood, they may have come from systems that were not operating optimally, and they may not have been educated on the proper way to walk. So even sometimes when they come into therapy, they're trying to walk the old way, and the old way was problematic too. So sometimes we need to provide that education as well, that psychoeducation on healthy relationship functioning, healthy relationship skills, effective communication, managing your emotions. And I tell you, Dr. Carl, that last presentation gave us all the tools for slowing down that emotional or lessening that emotional volume. So that was I love that. And also to help support marriages. Like, we as kingdom citizens have to get back on our soapboxes and remind this world that marriage, it does matter. And even everything, the definition of it needs to be in alignment with God's word. All of this, the principles of God's word that help us to live peaceably with one another, forgiveness, all of this helps. All of this is important. And we want to really instill a sense of hope in building a family, especially for this next generation. So, of course, we do see that youth are a little bit more apprehensive. I teach at the University of West Georgia as well. I teach a psychology of love course, and I also teach a personal relationships course. Let me make sure I'm going to on time. And so in my course, my students, they tell me all their experiences, and some of them, they are hopeful about getting married, but they are scared to death. They are scared to death. They are very apprehensive based on the models that they've seen before them. And so we want to show them that there is a godly way of doing this. And there are godly benefits associated with it as well. So what can we do on that higher kingdom level? And I'm almost done. Thank you. So as the church, we have to take our rightful place as being an authority in guiding marriage and family. And we have to talk about it. We have to help husbands be better husbands. We have to help wives be better wives. We have to help parents be better parents, because we have the BIBLE, basic instructions before leaving earth. We got the full authority over this thing, because God created family. God created marriage. We have to take our rightful places in guiding this important institution, right? Whether that be through education programs, small groups. If we have to be doing direct programming in the church to serve our families, even regardless of family structure. Regardless of family structure, bring awareness of the importance of marriage back and support our men, because there is an attack against the head, right? You know, just as we're saying the mind, there is an attack against the head of the family right now. There is an incessant attack by the enemy against the head of the family, and that's men. And so men, we need to support our men when it comes to fatherhood, when it comes to marriage, through education, through accountability, through mentorship. Because some of our men say, I don't have an example. So we need to put those examples in their lives through mentorship. Show them. Here's a living example. Maybe not perfect, but hey, son, I've been there. I've been where you at. We need that in the community. And so that's all I have to share for today. Thank you so much. It's just been an honor to be here. Here's my contact information. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and God bless.
Wow, thank you so much. That is just amazing, amazing. So many good points. Still, I'm like, oh my gosh. There's so much to learn, especially as a parent, just seeing how some of the things that maybe we were doing were actually affecting our kids. And so, but this was really, really good. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know there are so many comments, I can't even read them, but I know a lot of people wanted to know where they can get more information about what you are talking about. If they send an email, will you be able to send them the
Yes, feel free. If you want to get a copy of the PowerPoint, you're more than welcome to send me an email at info@upliftingrelationships.com, and it'd be my honor.